In the endless dark between galaxies where light took centuries to die, a single warship drifted like a shadow with teeth. It belonged to the Krell, a species that had burned its way across the stars for 10,000 years. They called themselves the only killers because nothing had ever survived their hunger. Not cities, not fleets, not gods. Their ship, the Dreadnail, was a mountain of black alloy forged from the bones of conquered worlds, its hull scarred with the names of dead civilizations, etched in acid and blood inside the command chamber. Commander Vrock stood tall, his armored frame nearly brushing the ceiling, his four eyes glowing red with impatience around him. His warriors stood silent, their claws resting on the hilts of plasma, blades they had not spoken in days, not since they received the final order from the High Hive. Burn Eartharth was a joke among the Krell, a blue speck in a quiet arm of the Milky Way. No fleet, no orbital defenses, no sign of advanced weaponry, just forests, oceans, and soft creatures who built towers of glass and told stories before sleep. The Krell had scanned it 100 times. It was defenseless. Ripe for harvest. Vrock flexed his jaw plates and growled, "Bring us into orbit." The Dreadnail obeyed, its engines humming as it pierced the upper atmosphere of the small planet below. Clouds parted like frightened animals as the warship descended toward the rocky deserts of Colorado, its shadow swallowing entire valleys in darkness. But then, something strange happened. The ship shuddered, not from impact, not from weapons fire, but from silence, a deep, unnatural silence, as if the very air had turned against them. Alarms blared across the bridge. Red lights flashed, but no cause could be found. Weapons, offline shields, unstable comms. Vrock slammed his fist into the console. "What is this sabotage?" No one answered because no one knew. Then a voice filled the chamber, calm, clear, and human. "We are not your prey." Vrock spun around, searching for the source. But there was no intruder, no breach. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Identify yourself," he snarled. "My name is Lisa, and I speak for Earth." Vrock laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "You speak for meat that walks you. Think words can stop the Krelly do not need to stop you," Lisa replied. "You only need to understand you are already beaten." Vrock roared in fury and ordered his warriors to deploy. They would tear this Lisa apart with their bare hands if they had to. On the surface beneath layers of rock and steel, a hidden bunker hummed with quiet energy. It was not a military base, not in the old sense. It had no cannons, no missile silos. Instead, it held rows of desks, monitors, and soft blue lights. And around them sat a dozen women, all focused. All calm. At the center stood Lisa. She was not tall, not armored, not armed. She wore a simple gray uniform, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes steady. She had grown up in a small town in Oregon, where the biggest excitement was the county fair. She had studied astrophysics, not warfare, but when the first alien signal was detected near Pluto, 10 years ago, she had been called to a secret meeting in a Washington basement. That meeting became Project Sentinel. While the world slept, humanity had prepared. Not with bombs, but with brains. The United States had quietly gathered its brightest women, scientists, engineers, linguists, and strategists from every state. They were not soldiers, but they were ready, because Earth had changed, while the galaxy believed. Humans were weak. Earth had spent decades building something new. Not a weapon, but a shield. A living defense system woven into the planet itself. It used the power grid, the internet, the satellites, even the weather, to create a planetary immune response, and Lisa had designed its mind. Her algorithm did not think like a machine. It thought like a human. It learned from mistakes. It felt patterns. It understood that sometimes the best defense was not to fight, but to confuse, to redirect, to show an enemy. A truth they were not ready for. Now that truth stood before the Krellas. The alien warriors landed in the desert, their boots sinking into the dry earth. They expected resistance, they expected fire. Instead, they found silence. Then the ground shifted. Not with an explosion, but with a ripple. The sand moved like water forming walls. Trenches, barriers, the very earth seemed to breathe around them. Small drones, no bigger than dragonflies, rose from cracks in the stone. Not to attack, but to watch, to learn. Vrock barked orders, but his voice faltered. His warriors looked around, confused, their weapons dead, their armor suddenly heavy, their instincts useless, on a monitor deep underground. Lisa watched them. She felt no hate, Only sadness you came to kill, she said, softly because you believe strength is domination. But Earth has learned differently. We protect, we adapt, we endure. She tapped a key and the sky above the Krell changed. Thousands of civilian satellites shifted in orbit, not to fire lasers, but to project. Light images filled the air. Not of armies, but of life, a child in Miami building a sandcastle. An old man in Chicago feeding pigeons, a group of teenagers in Seattle laughing under streetlights. A farmer in Iowa watching the sunrise. The Krell froze. They had never seen such things. Their entire history was written in blood and conquest. They had no word for joy, no concept of peace without victory. One young warrior dropped to his knees. His breathing ragged, not from fear, but from wonder. Vrock turned to his second in command, Kale. What is this trick? It is not a trick, Lisa said, stepping out of the bunker alone. Her hands empty, her eyes meeting his across the desert. You think you are the only killers, but you are wrong. Earth kills too, when it must, but we choose not to. We choose to build, to heal, to remember. She held up a small silver disc no bigger than a coin. This is a gift, not a weapon. It holds everything. We are, our history, our art, our science, our failures, our hopes. If you take it, you will understand why we survive. Vrock stared at her. Then at the disc. Then at the sky full of human faces. He had expected monsters. He found mirrors. For the first time in his life, he felt something unfamiliar doubt back in the bunker. Maria, a soft-spoken engineer from Texas, whispered, "Is it working?" Lisa nodded, but her eyes never left Vrock. It has to. The Krell did not attack. They did not retreat. They simply stood there, caught between instinct and something new. Hours passed, the sunset and the stars came out. Lisa remained in the desert, the wind tugging at her clothes. Vrock finally stepped forward, his massive frame casting a long shadow. Why show us this? He asked, his voice lower now. Less certain. Because you are lost, Lisa said. You think killing makes you strong, but it only makes you lonely. Earth has known war. We have drowned our world in blood too. But we learned that survival is not about being the last one standing. It is about making sure no one has to fall. Vrock looked at the disc again, then slowly reached out his clawed hand. He took it, the metal cool against his scales. What is this called? A library, Lisa said. But also a promise of what? That we do not have to be enemies. In the days that followed, the Krell did not leave. They camped in the desert under guard, not as prisoners, but as guests. Lisa and her team brought them food, taught them human words, showed them how to plant seeds in the dry soil. Vrock watched as Maria carefully placed a seed into the earth and covered it with dirt. Why do you do this? He asked. Because it grows, Lisa answered, and when it grows, it feeds someone who might one day feed you. The idea seemed alien to him, yet he watched the small act with growing respect. Meanwhile, deep in the bunker, the women of Project Sentinel worked tirelessly. They monitored global systems, checked for weaknesses, prepared for the next threat, because they knew the Krell would not be the last. Lisa knew it too. But for now, they had won not with fire, but with truth-own. Evening. Vrock sat with Lisa by a small fire, the flames casting long shadows across the sand. He held the disc in his palm, turning it slowly. Your species is strange, he said. You could have destroyed us the moment we entered your sky. You had the power, we did. Lisa agreed, but destruction is easy. Creation is hard, and we choose hard. Vrock was silent for a long time. Then he spoke again. What will you do if others come? We will speak first, Lisa said. And if they will not listen, we will defend. But never without offering peace first. That is weakness, Vrock said. But without his usual certainty. Is it? Lisa asked. Or is it strength to hold your hand open instead of in a fist? He had no answer. Weeks turned into months. The Krell learned to speak English, to eat bread, to laugh at human jokes. They helped rebuild a nearby town damaged by an old earthquake. They carried water, they fixed roofs, they listened. And Earth listened back. News of the Krell's change spread through secret channels. Other nations sent observers. Scientists came to study the aliens not as threats but as partners. The world held its breath, waiting for betrayal. But none came. Lisa knew it would not last forever. The galaxy was vast, And not all who came would be curious. Some would come hungry, some would come angry. But for now they had planted a seed one night as the moon hung full and bright over the desert. Lisa stood with Vrock on a hill overlooking the camp below, humans and Krell moving together. Sharing food, sharing stories. You have changed us, Vrock said quietly. No, Lisa said, you changed yourselves, you just needed to see another way. He looked at her, then at the stars. You are not like any species we have met. We are human, she said simply. And that means we try and orbit above them. The dreadnail floated silent, its weapons cold, its mission undone not by force but by choice. And far beyond, in the cold reaches of space, other eyes watched, other ships turned toward the blue planet, drawn by rumors of the impossible. The world that turned killers into students. Lisa knew they were coming, but she was ready because Earth was no longer hiding. Earth was speaking, and this was only the beginning. Months had passed since the Krell landed on Earth, and the world had not ended. Instead, something quieter and far more dangerous had begun. Hope in the desert camp outside Denver. Humans and Krell now shared meals under open skies. Children brought drawings to the warriors who at first stared in confusion, then carefully pinned them to their armor with pride. The once feared dreadnail sat in orbit like a sleeping giant, its hull now covered in small solar panels installed by human engineers. Working side by side with Krell technicians, Lisa walked through the camp every morning, not as a commander but as a teacher. She taught Vrock how to brew coffee, how to read poetry, how to sit in silence without feeling weak. She also listened. He told her of the Krell homeworld, a dead rock stripped bare by endless war of young warriors raised on stories of glory that ended only in ash. You were never shown another way. She said one evening as they watched the sunset, we were taught that mercy is. Vrock replied, his voice softer now but still heavy with old pain, and yet here you are learning to garden. He looked down at his hands, once used only for killing, now stained with soil from the small plot he tended near his tent. He had planted corn seeds Lisa had given him and watered them every day like a promise. But peace was fragile. Deep in the bunker beneath the hills, the monitors flickered with new data. Another ship was coming. Not Krell, not human. Its signature was unknown, sleek. Fast, silent, it had bypassed the outer warning net and was already entering the moon's shadow. Maria called Lisa immediately, her voice tight with worry. This one is different. No hails, no scans, just watching. Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert night. She knew this moment would come. The galaxy was vast, and not all its children were curious. Some were hungry, some were cruel. She gathered the team in the main chamber. Faces she had come to trust: Clara from Alabama, who could hack any system with a smile; Tanya from Minnesota, who spoke 7 languages including 2 alien ones; and now Krell and Grace from Arizona, whose calm hands had once rebuilt a fusion core with spare parts from a toaster. We do not know who they are, Lisa said, but we know why they are here. They heard about the Krell. They heard Earth did not burn. They want to test us, so we show them the same thing we showed Vrock. Grace asked. Maybe, Lisa said, but maybe not. All minds can be changed. Above them, the new ship hung in the dark, its hull smooth like polished bone. No weapons visible, no markings, just a single pulsing light at its center. Like a heartbeat, Vrock stood at the edge of the camp, his old instincts stirring. He turned to Lisa. If they attack, I will fight. Not yet, Lisa said. We speak first. She activated the global net, the same system that had disabled the dreadnail months before, but this time she did not shut anything down. She opened a channel. This is Earth, she said, her voice carried on. Every frequency, every satellite, every radio tower from Cape Town to Tokyo. We see you. You are welcome to talk. Silence. Then a voice came, not through speakers but directly into their minds, sharp, cold, and layered like ice cracking. You shelter killers. You are weak. The voice belonged to the Zenth, a species older than the Krell, who saw the universe as a pyramid. Only the strong deserved to exist. They had watched the Krell fall not to weapons but to words, and they considered it a disease. Weakness spreads, they said, and must be cut out. Lisa felt the weight of their judgment, but she did not flinch. We do not see it as weakness. We see it as evolution. Evolution is survival. The Zenth replied, and survival requires teeth. Then let us show you a different kind of teeth, Lisa said. She gave a signal. Across the planet, lights dimmed, then brightened in perfect unison. Cities turned off their power for 3 seconds, then lit up again in a wave that moved from east to west, forming a single symbol in the night sky, a circle with a leaf inside the ancient sign for life. The Zenth ship did not move, but their voice wavered. What is this trick not? A trick? Lisa said this is proof we are connected not by force but by choice. Millions of people chose to do this together in peace. That is our strength. For the first time the Zenth hesitated. On the surface Varrock watched the sky, his chest tight with something new pride. Not for himself, but for these soft creatures who faced gods with light instead of fire. But the Zenth were not so easily moved. A beam of energy lanced from their ship, not a weapon but a probe. It struck the desert 10 miles from the camp and the ground erupted. Not with fire, but with silence. A perfect sphere of nothing, where sound light. Even time seemed to stop. A null zone, they called it, a place where life could not exist. Not even microbes. This is what happens to weakness. The Zenth said. Lisa's heart pounded, but she did not look away. You erase life and call it order, but you are just afraid of what? Afraid that if kindness can win, then your whole life has been a lie. The Zenth did not answer, but the null zone began to grow slowly, swallowing rocks, plants, even the air in the bunker. Clara worked fast, rerouting power through underground cables. Tanya sent messages to every observatory on Earth, asking them to focus their telescopes not on the ship, but on the null zone. Grace prepared a drone not armed, but filled with sensors and seeds. Lisa stepped forward again. This time not alone. Varrock walked with her, then Maria, then Clara, then dozens of women from the project, and then townspeople, farmers, teachers, students, all walking toward the edge of the growing silence. Not with weapons, but with hands full of soil seeds and songs. The Zenth watched. You will die, the voice warned. Maybe Lisa said, but we will not die afraid. As they reached the edge of the null zone, the air grew cold. The silence pressed against their ears like pressure, but they did not stop. Grace launched the drone. It flew into the dead zone and released its cargo. Not bombs, but spores engineered from extremophil's bacteria that thrived in acid and ice and vacuum. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a single green tendril pushed through the gray dust. Then, another. The null zone shuddered. Life was returning. The Zenth ship flickered, its light dimming in confusion. This is not possible. Life always finds a way. Lisa said softly. On the monitors in the bunker, data poured in. The spores were adapting, rewriting their own code, using the very energy of the null field to grow stronger. The Zenth had built a tomb, but Earth had turned it into a cradle. Varrock knelt and touched the new green shoot with one claw, then looked up at the sky. You thought you could kill hope, he said, his voice rough with emotion. But hope is not a thing you can erase. It is a choice, and we choose it every day. The Zenth were silent for a long time, longer than any species had ever made them wait. Then their voice returned, quieter now, uncertain. You do not fight, we protect. Lisa said. There is a difference. What do you want from us? Nothing, Lisa said, except the chance to show you that you do not have to be alone. The Zenth ship pulsed once, then began to rise, not in retreat but in wonder. It circled the planet once, then stopped above the desert. A small pod detached and floated down, landing gently in the sand. From it emerged a single figure, tall, slender, with skin like pale crystal and eyes that held galaxies. They stepped forward, slowly, and stopped before Lisa. I'm Elira. She said, the first Zenth to speak a name in centuries. Lisa smiled and offered her hand, not in dominance but in greeting. Welcome to Earth. Elira looked at the hand, then at the green shoot, then at the crowd of humans and Krell watching in silence. She reached out and touched Lisa's fingers. Not with fear, but with curiosity. In the weeks that followed, the Zenth pod became a classroom. Elira learned human words, human music, human grief. She cried the first time she heard a lullaby. She had never known her species once sang to their young. Lisa learned too. The Zenth were not born cruel. They were born afraid. Their world had died long ago, and they believed the only way to survive was to control everything, to cut out anything unpredictable, like kindness, like love. But here on Earth they saw something else. They saw Varrock teaching children how to plant beans. They saw Maria laughing as she fixed a broken radio with a paperclip. They saw Grace holding the hand of an old woman who had lost her home in a storm, and they saw Lisa every day walking the line between worlds, never demanding, never forcing, only offering. Oneida Lyra stood with Lisa on the same hill where she had once watched the Krell. "Arrive, you have changed everything," she said. "No," Lisa said, "we just reminded the universe that strength does not have to be loud." Lyra looked at the stars, then back at the camp below, where Zenth and Human and Krell sat around a fire sharing stories, in broken words and gestures. "What happens now?" "Now," Lisa said, "you go home and tell them what you saw, and if they do not believe me, then you show them how to plant a seed." Lyra smiled, a small, fragile thing. But real. When the Zenth ship left, it did not vanish into the dark. It broadcast a message on every channel in every language it knew. Earth is not weak. Earth is awake. And the message spread. Ships from a dozen species turned toward the blue planet. Not with weapons, but with questions. Some came in peace, some came skeptical. Some came ready to test the legend, but Earth was ready. Lisa and her team opened the doors of the desert camp to all. They shared food knowledge. Even their failures, they did not hide their past wars, their mistakes, their pain. They showed the whole truth. And slowly the galaxy began to change. Trade routes opened, not for weapons but for seeds, for songs, for stories. The Krell became teachers, the Zenth became builders, and Earth became a beacon, not of power, but of possibility. Years later, Lisa stood on the same hill, now covered in wildflowers. Vrock stood beside her, his armor replaced with simple cloth, his hands calloused from farming. "Do you ever miss the old ways?" he asked. 5 years had passed since the first alien ship landed on Earth, and the world was no longer just human. It was something new, a patchwork of voices, species, and hopes stitched together by choice, not conquest. The desert camp outside Denver had grown into a city not of steel and glass, but of gardens, shared kitchens, and open classrooms where Krell taught discipline, Zenth taught memory, and humans taught how to laugh at yourself. Lisa still walked the same paths every morning, but now she was not alone. Children of all kinds ran past her, some with 2 legs, some with 4, some with wings, small and bright. They played games that mixed Earth rules with alien ones, using stones and light and sound to score points. No one kept track for long. They just played. She had not planned for this. Not really. She had only wanted to protect her home, but in doing so she had opened a door and the universe had walked through it. Not with boots, but with bare feet and open eyes. Still, peace was not a place. It was a practice, and some days it was hard in the early hours before sunrise. Lisa sat in the old bunker, now repurposed as a library. The walls lined with books, data crystals, and living vines that hummed softly when touched. Maria entered holding 2 mugs of steaming tea. Her hair now streaked with gray, but her eyes still sharp. "They are coming," she said quietly. Lisa did not look up. She already knew. The monitors had shown it 3 days ago. A fleet, not one ship but dozens. Dark, jagged shapes, moving in perfect silence through the outer rim of the solar system. No hails, no signals, just approach. The Voratha species, older than memory, who believed the universe was a test, and only the silent, the ruthless, the empty deserved to pass. They had watched Earth's rise with cold interest, and now they came to end it. Not out of hate, but out of duty. As a gardener pulls a weed, they saw compassion as a flaw, a weakness that would spread if not cut out. "How long?" Maria asked. 3 days. Maybe 4. Lisa said. "If they keep their speed." Maria sat beside her, the warmth of the mug spreading through her hands. "Do we run?" Lisa shook her head. "We stand, but this is different. They do not want to talk. They do not want to learn. They want to erase." "I know," Lisa said. "And that is why we do not meet them with weapons. We meet them with truth." That afternoon she called a gathering in the central square. Not just humans, but Krell, Zenth, and others who had come in the years since the first landing. Tall insect, like beings from the rings of Saturn. Gentle giants from ocean worlds, even a small group of energy beings who lived in magnetic fields. They all came because Earth had become a promise, a place where you did not have to be alone. Lisa stood on a simple, wooden platform, no armor, no title. Just a woman who had said no once and changed everything. "They are coming," she said. "The Vorath. They believe kindness is a disease, and they have come to cure us by killing us. Murmurs rose through the crowd, fear. But also anger. We could fight, Clara said, stepping forward, her voice strong. We have defenses, we have allies. We do. Lisa agreed, but if we fight them with violence, we prove them right. That strength is only about power and paint. And what do we do? Tanya asked. We show them what they have forgotten. She said that life is not a test, it is a gift, and the strongest thing you can do is share it. Plans began that night. Not for war, but for witness. Every city on Earth prepared not bunkers, but open spaces. Every home lit a candle. Every school taught the same lesson today. We do not hide today. We Scheinvrock found Lisa in the garden where he now grew vegetables alongside children. He had once seen his prey. You are not afraid? He said. I am terrified, she admitted, but fear does not get to decide what we do. He knelt and touched a tomato plant, its fruit red and full. I used to think soft things were weak, he said. Now I know they are the brave stun. The third day, the Vorath fleet entered orbit. They did not descend. They did not speak. They simply appeared, a ring of black ships blotting out the stars. Their silence so complete it felt like a scream. Then without warning, the sky went dark, not from clouds but from absence. Every light on Earth flickered and died. Phones went silent. Radios fell quiet, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The Vorath had not attacked, they had simply removed everything that made Earth feel alive in the sudden quiet. People held hands, parents hugged children, strangers stood. Together in the streets, no one ran. No one screamed, they waited. And then Lisa spoke, her voice carried not through speakers but through the global net, the same system that had once disabled the dreadnail. Now it did not shut things down. It turned everything on. One by one, candles lit in windows, then flashlights, then phones, then car headlights, then street lamps, then solar panels feeding power back into the grid. Within minutes the planet glowed, not with the harsh light of war, but with the soft, steady light of presence. We are still here, Lisa said, her voice calm, clear, carried on every frequency. We are not silent because we have nothing to say. We are quiet because we are listening, and now we speak. The Vorath did not respond, but their ships shifted, slightly as if unsettled. Lisa walked out of the city alone, her boots crunching on the dry earth. She stopped in the center of an open field and raised her arms, not in surrender but in offering. Come down, she said. If you believe we are weak, come see. For yourself. For hours nothing happened. Then a single ship detached from the fleet and descended, not with fire but with caution. It landed 100 yards from her, its hull smooth and featureless like polished stone. A door opened. From it stepped a figure, tall, thin, wrapped in gray cloth that seemed to drink the light around it. Its face was hidden, but its presence pressed against the air like cold iron. You are Lisa. The voice was not sound but thought, sharp and dry as bone. I am, she said. You think your light frightens us. It is not meant to frighten. Lisa said, it is meant to welcome. The figure stepped closer. Why do you not fight? Because fighting you would mean becoming you, she said. And we have worked too hard to stay human. The figure stopped, 10 feet away, then slowly pulled back its hood. Beneath was a face not monstrous but sad, deep lines carved by centuries of solitude, eyes that had not seen kindness in lifetimes. My name is Oren. The Vorath said, I was sent to end you, and yet you are here talking because your light confused me. Oren admitted, we were taught that life is noise, chaos, weakness. But your silence was louder than any war cry. Lisa nodded, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object, a seed from Vrock's garden. This is all I have to give. She said, it needs water, sun, and time. It will not grow if you crush it, but if you let it, it will feed you for years. Oren looked at the seed, then at Lisa, then at the city behind her where thousands now stood watching, not with weapons but with open hands. Why would you give me this? Because you are hungry. She said, not for food but for something else. Oren's hand trembled as he took the seed, his fingers brushing hers for the first time in centuries, feeling warmth in. The days that followed, Oren did not return to his ship. He stayed in the city, sleeping in a small room with a window that faced the garden. He watched children play. He ate bread baked by human hands. He listened to songs sung in languages he did not understand but felt in his bones. The Vorath fleet remained in orbit but did not move. On the 5th night, Oren sat with Lisa under the stars. My people have forgotten how to hope, he said. Then help us remind them. She said, I'll be going back. Not as a conqueror, but as a student. He looked at her as if she had asked him to walk on water. But then he nodded slowly. When the time came, Oren stood before his fleet. His gray cloak replaced with a simple tunic stitched by human hands. He carried not a weapon, but a basket filled with seeds, fruits, and books. He boarded his ship alone. As it rose into the sky, Lisa and the others watched in silence. Then from the ship a single message came through. Not in thought, but in sound, soft and clear. Thank you, the fleet. Turned and left, not in defeat, but in wonder. Back in the city, celebration was quiet. Not with fireworks, but with shared meals, with stories told late into the night, with hands held a little tighter. Maria found Lisa on the hill overlooking the valleys. It over, she asked. Lisa smiled. No, it never is, but today we won the right to keep trying. Years passed and Earth became more than a planet. It became a verb to Earth, meant to welcome, to heal, to grow together. Schools opened on Mars and the Moon, not to train soldiers, but to teach cooperation. Farms spread across 3 continents using Krell strength, Zenth memory, and human creativity to feed millions. Lisa grew older. Her hair white, her steps slower, but her voice never lost its Calmone spring. Morning she sat in the garden, now vast and wild, with flowers that bloomed in colors no one had seen before. Vrock sat beside her, his once fearsome frame now bent with age, but his eyes still bright. Do you think they remember us? He asked. Who, the ones who came to kill us? Lisa looked at the sky, where ships from 100 worlds came and went like birds returning home. They do, she said, and some bring their children to see the place where killers learned to plant seeds. Vrock chuckled, then grew serious. What happens when you are gone? The work continues, she said. It was never mine. It was always ours. That evening, as the sun set, Lisa walked through the city one last time. Children ran past her, calling her name. Not as a hero, but as a friend. She touched the leaves of a tree she had planted decades ago, its branches now wide enough to shade 100 people. She returned to her small house, sat in her favorite chair, and closed her eyes. Not in sleep, but in peace. She did not wake. The next morning, the city was quiet, not with grief, but with gratitude. They did not build a statue, they planted a forest. 10 years after Lisa's passing, Earth was not the same world it had once been. It was quieter in some ways, louder in others. The city still hummed with life, but the noise was different, less frantic, more purposeful. Children grew up learning not just math and history, but how to listen to silence, how to read the wind, how to share a meal with someone whose skin shimmered or whose voice came in colors. The desert city, once a camp for wary aliens, was now called Solara, a name chosen by a Krell child who said it sounded like sunlight on water. It stood as a living school where humans, Zenth, Krell, and dozens of other species learned not to conquer but to coexist. Maria, now in her late 60s, walked its paths every morning. Her steps slower, but her mind as sharp as ever. She no longer ran the bunker. It had long since been turned into a museum of peace filled with relics from the early days: a broken plasma rifle, a coffee mug with Lisa's name on it, the first seed Vrock ever planted. But Maria still watched the skies, because peace was not a finish line. It was a path, and sometimes new travelers came with old fears. One morning the global net pinged, not with alarm, but with curiosity. A single ship had entered the solar system. Small, sleek, and unlike any design on record, it moved slowly, as if tired. Its engines sputtering, its hull scarred with deep gashes. No hails, no threats, just a slow drift toward Mars. Orbit Maria called Tanya and Grace, both now leaders in their own right. Tanya ran the Interspecies Dialogue Center in what was once Chicago. Grace managed the bioharmony farms that fed half the planet. They met in the old command room, now a quiet chamber with windows that looked out on blooming cherry trees. It is not hostile, Maria said, studying the data, but it is hurt. Grace frowned. Is it alone? As far as we can tell. Tanya crossed her arms. They might be testing us. Some species still do not believe Earth is real. They think it is a myth. A trap, maybe, Maria said, but what if it is just someone lost? They decided to act as Lisa would have acted, with open hands. A rescue shuttle was sent, not armed, not shielded. Just a simple vessel with medical supplies, food, and a message in 50 languages. You are seen. You are safe. The Alien ship did not respond, but it did not flee either. When the shuttle docked its pilot, a young woman named Nina from Oregon, the same town Lisa once called home, stepped inside. She found the cabin dark, cold, and empty, except for one figure curled. In the corner it was small, barely 4 feet tall, wrapped in thin silver fabric. Its skin pale blue, its breathing shallow. Its eyes closed. Nina did not reach for a weapon. She knelt and placed a thermal blanket over the figure, then activated the med. Scanner malnourished, dehydrated, radiation burns, but alive. Back on Earth, the stranger was taken to the healing wing of Solara, a place where medicine blended human science, Zenth energy work, and Krell resilience techniques. For 3 days the being did not wake, and the 4th day its eyes opened. They were large, black, and filled with stars. Nina was there holding a cup of warm broth. She smiled gently. "You are safe." The being tried to speak, but its voice was gone. So Nina gave it a slate and a stylus. With trembling fingers it wrote one word. Runana frowned. Why? The being wrote again, "They're coming." Who? The silence, and Nina did not understand. But she called Maria. When Maria arrived, she brought not soldiers but scholars. She sat beside the being and showed it images of Earth, of Solara, of children playing under alien suns. The being stared, then touched the image of a child with Krell markings, and tears fell from its eyes. It wrote again. "We thought we were the last." The last? What? The last who remember over. The next week the being they came to call Eli slowly healed, and spoke not with voice but with written words and gestures. It came from a world far beyond the known galaxy, a place once rich with life and song, but now silent because of something it called the Hollow. The Hollow were not a species, they were an absence, a force that consumed not matter but meaning. They erased stories, memories, love, anything that gave life weight. They left bodies standing but empty minds working, but blankolies. People had fought with weapons, with shields, with minds linked in unity. But the Hollow fed on resistance. The more you fought, the more you gave them to consume. In the end, only Eli escaped in a broken ship, carrying the last archive of their world. A crystal no bigger than a thumb, filled with songs, poems, and the names of everyone who had ever lived. "They are coming here," Eli wrote one evening as the sun set over Solara. "They follow the light of meaning, and your world shines brighter than any." They have seen. Maria felt a chill, not of fear but of duty. That night she gathered the council, not just humans but Vrock. Now old but still strong Grace, Tanya, and even Oren, who had returned years ago as an ambassador for the Vorathali, showed them. The crystal, when activated, it filled the room not with sound but with feeling, a wave of joy, sorrow, hope all at once. It was the soul of a dead world held in light. "They are coming for this," Oren said quietly. "And for you. We cannot fight them." Lisa's way will not work here, Tanya said. "If they feed on meaning, then our stories, our kindness, our very hope might feed them. But if we hide," Maria said, "we become what they want." Empty silence fell over the room. Then Vrock spoke, his voice rough with age but clear. "If they feed on meaning, then we must give them something they cannot digest." "What is that?" Grace asked. "Truth," Vrock said. "Not just pretty stories, but the whole truth. The pain, the doubt, the mess, the love that stays even when it hurts." Maria nodded. "Lisa never hid our darkness. She showed it alongside our light. That is what made us real. They made a plan not to hide, not to fight, but to be utterly honest. They broadcast a message across all channels, not a warning, not a plea, but an invitation. Know you are coming, we know what you are, we are not perfect. We have warred, we have hurt, we have failed, but we choose to keep trying. If you come to erase us, know this. We will not stop being real." Then they prepared Solara not for battle but for witness. Every person, every being was asked to share one true thing, one memory, one regret, one hope, not for show but for truth. I helped weave these into a new signal, not a single voice but a chorus of millions, messy, overlapping, full of laughter and tears. When the Hollow came, they did not arrive in ships. They arrived as a wave, a ripple in space itself where stars dimmed and time slowed. They reached the edge of the solar system and paused. The signal hit them, not a weapon, not a shield, but a flood of raw, unfiltered life. A child admitting she was scared of the dark Krell warrior, apologizing for a life he took long ago. A Zenth elder singing a lullaby she had forgotten for centuries. A farmer crying over a lost crop, then planting again. The next day, The hollow did not consume it. They recoiled because truth has weight and the hollow were made of nothing. They could not digest honesty. They could only erase lies, and Earth was not lying. For the first time in their existence, the hollow hesitated in Solara. Ailey stood with Maria watching the sky. They do not understand, Eli wrote. No, Maria said, they are learning that some things cannot be taken, only given. The hollow lingered at the edge of the system for 7 days. Then slowly the stars returned to their normal brightness. The ripple faded. They were gone, not defeated, but changed. Ellie stayed on Earth not as a refugee, but as a teacher. They helped build the memory vault, a place where every species could store their stories, not to preserve perfection, but to honor truth. Years passed, and the tale of the hollow became part of Earth's song. Not as a victory, but as a lesson. You cannot fight emptiness with force. You fill it with honesty. Maria grew older, her hair fully white, her hands wrinkled, but her eyes still held the spark that had once helped save the world. One spring morning she walked through the garden where Lisa was buried, not with a stone but with a tree, its branches wide, its leaves shimmering with a soft silver edge. A gift. From the zeniths, she placed a hand on the bark and whispered, "We kept it going." The wind moved through the leaves not as a voice but as a feeling, like a nod, like a thank you. That evening in Solara, a new child was born to a human mother and a Krell father. The first of its kind. The city gathered not in fear but in joy. Maria held the child for a moment, its skin warm, its eyes already curious. "Welcome," she whispered to the stars, to the future, to the endless work of being kind in a universe that often forgets how, in somewhere far beyond the edge of known space, another ship drifted tired and alone. But this time it was not running. It was coming home. 50 years after Lisa first spoke to the stars, Earth was no longer a single world. It was a promise carried on ships that sailed between suns, a quiet revolution written in shared meals and open doors. The city of Solara had grown into a network of communities across 3 planets and 7 moons, each one built not on power but on presence. Maria was gone now, her name spoken with the same warmth as Lisa's in classrooms, where children learned that courage was not the absence of fear but the choice to care anyway. Her legacy lived in the global net, now called the Weave, a living system that connected not just machines, but minds, hearts, and memories across species. In her place stood Nina, the young pilot who had once found Eli in a broken ship. Nina was older now, her hair streaked with silver, but her hand still steady, her eyes still kind. She walked the gardens of Solara every dawn, not out of duty, but out of love. The galaxy had changed. Once the Krell were feared as the only killers, now their young came to Earth to learn how to heal. Once the Zenth believed emotion was weakness. Now they composed symphonies that made stars weep. Once the Vorath saw silence as purity. Now they planted forests on dead worlds just to hear. The wind moved through leaves, but peace was never finished. One morning the Weave hummed with a new signal, not from deep space but from within the solar system. A distress call, faint, broken, repeating 2 words over and over, "Help use." It came from Titan, one of Saturn's moons, long thought empty, but now home to a small research outpost of human and Zenth scientists. Nina gathered the council in the heart chamber of Solara, a circular room with walls made of living crystal that glowed softly with the thoughts of those inside. "The signal is real." Tanya's granddaughter Leah said she was only 20 but already fluent in 12 languages, including the light patterns of energy beings. "It is not a trick," Grace's son. Jude nodded. "The outpost has not responded to hails in 12 hours. Nina felt the old weight settle on her shoulders. Not fear but responsibility. She had spent her life carrying Lisa's lesson forward. Now it was her turn to test it. "We go," she said. "Not with weapons, with hands, ready to help." A small ship was prepared, not a war vessel but a mercy runner painted white with green vines growing along its hull. A symbol of life that travels to heal. Nina piloted it herself with Eli beside her, now tall and strong, their blue skin marked with the silver lines of a memory keeper. They carried no arms, only medkit seeds and a data core filled with every known language of comfort. The journey to Titan took 2 days. As they approached the moon's thick orange atmosphere, the ship's sensors showed something strange. The outpost was intact, no fire, no blast marks, but all power was off. And the air outside was wrong too. Still too cold. Even for Titanina landed gently on the icy plain. They stepped out in thermal suits, the wind howling around them like a lost voice. The outpost door opened before they reached it. Inside it was dark. Empty tables were set with half-eaten meals, tools lay where they were dropped, notebooks open mid-sentence, but no people. Then a sound, a soft hum from deep below. They followed it down through maintenance tunnels until they reached the core chamber. There they found them, all 37 scientists huddled together in a circle. Their eyes open but unseeing their bodies, still their minds. Gone, not dead, not sleeping, just empty. Like the hollow had been here, but Eli shook their head. This is not the hollow. Nina knelt beside a human scientist. She knew Dr. Arden, a woman who had once taught her how to read alien Botanyarden's lips moved, but no sound came out nigh. I placed a hand on her shoulder and activated a soft pulse from her wristband, a tool designed to gently wake sleeping minds. For a moment nothing happened. Then Arden gasped and her eyes focused. Run, she whispered. What happened? Nina asked. It spoke to us, Arden said, her voice raw. It showed us everything all at once, the birth of stars, the death of worlds, the pain of every creature that ever lived. It was too much, we could not hold it. What was it? Arden looked at the ceiling, as if it might fall in it, called itself the Witness. The Witness, it does not want to hurt, it just wants to be seen. But to see it, you must carry all it has seen, and no mind can hold that much truth. Ellie stepped forward and placed a hand on the wall. The crystal in their pocket glowed. It is not evil. Eli signed. They had stopped speaking aloud years ago, their voice now a blend of gesture and light. It is lonely. Nina understood then the Witness was not an enemy. It was a being so old, so full of memory that it had forgotten how to be gentle. It reached out not to harm but to share. And in sharing it broke those who were not ready. We cannot fight it. Nina said, we must teach it how to give without overwhelming. But how Leah's voice came through. The comm from Orbit be showing it how to listen first. Nina turned to Eli. Do you still carry your people's archive, Eli? I nodded. Then we use it not to show the Witness everything but to show it how to hold one thing at a time. Back on the ship they preparedly activated the crystal, not broadcasting the whole archive but selecting one single memory. A child's first step on their home world. The sun warmed the grass. Soft, the mother's laugh bright and clear. They sent it not as a flood, but as a whisper, a single thread of meaning into the void where the Witness waited. For hours nothing happened. Then the ice around the outpost began to glow, a soft blue light spreading like breath on glass. A voice came not in their ears but in their bones. You offer me a drop when I am drowning in oceans. Nina stepped outside alone. Her suit lights dimmed, her hands open. We are not strong enough to hold your ocean, she said. But we can teach you how to pour it slowly, how to share one cup at a time. The light pulse. Why? Would you help me? Because we were once like you? Nina said, full of pain. We thought we had to carry it all alone until someone showed us how to set it down. Silence. Then the scientists in the outpost stirred one by one, blinking as if waking from a long dream the Witness was learning over the next week. Nina and Eli worked with the being not as a threat but as a student. They taught it how to shape its memories into stories, how to wait for a listener to be ready, how to ask before sharing in. Return the Witness showed them wonders, the birth of the first galaxy, the song of a dying star, the quiet joy of a single flower blooming on a dead world. It was not erased. It was transformed. When the scientists returned to Solara, they did not speak. Of trauma they spoke of awe. The Witness remained near Titan, not as a ghost but as a guardian. It began to help lost ships find their way. It whispered warnings of solar storms. It even sang lullabies to newborns across the system. Nina returned home. Tired but full that evening, she stood on the hill where Lisa's tree still grew, its branches now wide enough to shade a whole village. A young girl approached her, shy with bright eyes. Are you the one who talked to the Witness? Nina smiled. I listened. More than I talked. The girl sat beside her. Why do you do it? Why keep helping? Even when it is hard, because someone did it for us. Nina said a long time ago. A woman named Lisa chose to speak instead of scream. And that one choice changed everything. The girl was quiet for a moment, then she asked, what if I am not brave enough? You do not have to be brave. Nina said, you just have to be kind. And kindness is not loud. It is quiet, like planting a seed, like holding a hand, like listening when no one else. Well, the girl nodded and leaned against her shoulder. Far above them, the stars turned, and in the quiet hum of the weave, a new voice joined the chorus. Soft, hesitant, but real. The witness had learned to say thank you. Years passed, and the story of the witness became part of the great song of Earth, not as a battle, but as a bridge. New generations grew up knowing that even the oldest pain could be healed with patience, that even the loneliest being could find a home. Nina grew old. Her steps slow, her voice soft, but her hands still reached out to those in need. On her last day, she sat under Lisa's tree, the leaves shimmering with silver light. Eli beside her, their face lined with time, but their eyes still full of stars. You did well, Eli signed. We all did, Nina whispered, and as the sun set not just on Solara, but on 100 worlds that had learned to care. She closed her eyes, not in fear, but in peace. The next morning, children found the tree blooming with new flowers, each one shaped like a hand open in greeting, and in the weave a new voice began to speak, gentle, curious, full of hope. The work continued, not with war but with welcome, and the universe kept learning how to be kind.